You might have figured out from the song and the other inferences that my talk today is about love. It is called What Love Is. Yeah, what love is. Because, sometimes we get that kind of mixed up. We have, perceptive issues, perceptual issues. So we're going to talk about that. I really hope that all of you, when you got up this morning and got in your vehicle to come here, you remembered to bring your love meter. Because your love meter we're going to need today. We're going to use the love meter to see what's going on with us. Yeah, are you ready? And this is, Randy's getting an interesting look on his face. This is an exercise that you can perform fully clothed and children can participate. So yeah, there we go, okay? Yeah, we're on the edge, but we're not that far off the edge. How about that? Yeah, so I love it. So Ernest Holmes, in his writing, the founder of Science of Mind, talked a lot about thought and about thinking. And he said that we live in a thought atmosphere, literally a thought soup that we are swimming around, okay? That ocean that we send our love across, okay? Did you feel the room fill up, by the way, with the love on that? It was wonderful, wasn't it? Yes. So we live in a thought atmosphere, and it's a really powerful environment, Have you ever had the experience of walking into a room and you felt the stuff? Like the people in the room weren't happy, or maybe there was a lot of tension. Another time when I really pay attention to this is around Christmas time. If you go to the mall, okay, the minute you walk into the building, you can feel it in the parking lot. You walk into the building and it's like the place is vibrant, okay, with that expectation that we experience around the holidays. And sometimes it's also kind of vibrant, manic, with the people who are running around trying to not to spend too much money on too many gifts and, yada, yada, yada. What we do sometimes at the holidays is pretty crazy. Yeah, that's that thought atmosphere, that thought soup. And, it is full. It's full and it's rich. Anytime that, that things are going on in our lives and we don't really like them, a good way to get out of taking responsibility is to go, that thought atmosphere, that is everything from every thought, ever thought from time forward until now. So it's a collective of all thought. And if you don't like what's going on in your world, you can go, oh, well, that's not my issue. It comes from all the stuff in that thought atmosphere. I'm joking. That doesn't really work in this movement, but we try anyway, don't we? But we even live in a social culture that kind of tells us that there's a couple of different things going on all at once. We don't always get the full picture. And Ernest Holmes talked about that. He referred to that as duality. So today we're going to talk a little bit about duality and also about finding love within that duality. Now, if we were to define duality, in our Wednesday evening class, we're using a little book by Dennis Merritt Jones. It's called How to Speak Science of Mind. And it's basically a little dictionary of the terms and the jargon. Every community and everything has its language. We're not different from that. We do too. But if we were to define duality, it essentially is a belief in two separate, equal, and opposing factions. All right, so think about that for a minute. If you live in duality, then there's right and there's wrong. And there's black and white. And there's good and there's bad. And we could go on endlessly. Okay? Couldn't we? Ernest tells us further that duality shows up all over the place. In religion, it shows up in a pretty common mainstream teaching. That you have the good or God, and you have the bad. We also would call that in mainstream teaching, Satan, right, or the devil. And it's a very interesting thing that in Science of Mind, we did this last week. We looked at the metaphysical interpretation, or a metaphysical interpretation of the Bible, and what we recognized from interpreting the word Satan is that it can be understood to mean crazy thought. Why doesn't that say something about your thoughts? And about the whole belief system that your thoughts are tremendously powerful in your world. So in religion, we have those two kind of polar opposites. I heard that, I don't know when you guys heard that, I heard that as a little child. I grew up, I've told you before, I grew up in the Catholic faith, and I went to a parochial school, and they told us, they said, there's God and then there's the devil. And I said, excuse me, but you're telling me this guy named God, this thing, is all-powerful? And then you're telling me it lets something else hang out? It's just as powerful as it? I was 5 and that didn't make sense. Okay? It just didn't, I couldn't quite square that, I didn't ask, I was afraid to, And those nuns that taught were, 8 feet tall and all dressed in black, there's no way, okay? I wasn't going to ask that question. We see that duality thing in science too, and this is amazing, guys. And this is one of the reasons that I love this teaching. Since I came into this teaching, I learned about quantum science, okay? And quantum science is phenomenal stuff, and it backs up everything we do here. It's incredible stuff. We're going to talk more about it in a minute. In science, the way duality plays out is we've got matter, and then we've got spirit. And those two are different, supposedly, until we look at quantum science. And what quantum science says in a nutshell is that you and I, and each and every one of us here, is consciousness. And that anytime consciousness focuses on something, through the very act of attending to it, we change the nature of whatever it is from a wave, into a particle. And in quantum science, they use a term that I love. It's called collapsing into form. When we attend to something, that wave, that energy, that soft stuff, whatever it is, goes from being soft to being something like that. So you get a picture in your mind of something you're going to get. I could look at this lectern. I looked for lecterns. Carol would laugh. Before we moved in here in March, I started looking for a lectern in, like 19, I don't know, something, okay? A long time ago. And I could never find what I wanted. And so I would be online for hours looking for what I wanted. This is still not what I want. Okay, but I finally, kind of, had a meeting of the minds there and decided it would suffice. What I wanted cost, $80,000 or something. It's kind of crazy. Actually, what I want is in another church right now being used for the same purpose, so I won't steal that from them yet. Maybe someday they'll give it to me. But at any rate, I started looking for a lectern, and I looked and I looked and I looked and I looked online, okay, for that lectern, because that, that's a great way to shop. You can find all kinds of things. You can look to see if you're going to have to pay shipping, and then you can try to figure out, is there any way to get some kind of tricky discount or something, and ultimately you find what you want, don't you? Sometimes it takes me a while, but I always find what I want online. It's great, I don't have to get in my car. I can do it in my jammies. The cat is sitting on my lap, and he's comfortable as long as the laptop doesn't take too much priority there, so it's wonderful. Well, I looked and looked and looked and looked, and finally one day, it just, maybe my opinion of what I wanted changed, but it collapsed into form. And I saw it there on the screen, and I said, push the button, key in the numbers, okay? 2 days later, it shows up at my door. It's amazing. Isn't that a wonderful, kind of presentation of how manifestation works? It's really tricky. So yeah, it's cool. But again, in science, we have matter. We have this stuff that's solid, okay? And we have that is not. We have spirit. We even do this with the body, guys. Think about the body. Don't you consider your body solid? It feels like it. We had a wonderful gift from Lou. Took a number of us to Unto These Hills Friday night for the opening night. It was a grand and glorious experience. We really had a blast doing it. Betty went, and gosh, we just had a wonderful time. It was just very exciting. But we were cold while we were down there, and the body felt really real, okay? It wouldn't go away. It felt so real. It was really cold, And I would say to you, yes, my body feels solid, but here's another trip. It's not. It's about 60 to 70% water. Yeah, so hydrate yourself. Yeah, it's good. But in the mind, we tend to segregate. We tend, because of that thing, matter versus spirit, okay? What's another one? Good versus bad, God versus the devil. We tend to segregate. We tend to kind of pigeonhole and categorize. And we do that in an instant. In an instant. We literally see something, and before it's finished evolving in front of us, we have made a decision about it, haven't we? We're very quick to assess, and that's a wonderful thing. If you think about this, and I don't know when this was, but back when people lived with saber-toothed tigers, if you couldn't make a decision quickly, you probably didn't get to make many more decisions. You know, you probably went bye-bye, right? So that assessment, that judgment, that's a God-given thing. It's not a bad thing at all. But we take it sometimes and we use it to carve out something and say, only this is love. Only this is God. Only this is good. Only this is meaningful. And we throw away the rest of it. We literally carve out little experiences or little parts of our lives and say, this is what I want and this is what I don't want. In Abraham teaches, they teach a lot about contrast. And contrast is wonderful. Contrast is all that other stuff. You know, it's the stuff we're saying I don't want. You know, I don't want to not have any money. I don't want to have ill health. I don't want to have this. I don't want to have that. And yet sometimes we forget that those very things are also carriers of love. Because we get it in this teaching that there is no place that God is not. Even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of pain, even in the midst of grief. I talked to a woman probably 5 or 6 years ago, a woman I've known for a number of years, who was in the middle, right smack in the middle of losing a loved one, someone she had been with for, I'm going to guess, 50 years, maybe 60, long-term life partner situation. And it was an amazing experience because she said, I get it. That whether that person is walking around in this body or whether they have moved on, God is everywhere. And all I have to do is recognize the fact that that loved one is with me everywhere. And that warmth and that connection that I feel will begin to be expanded upon. And the more that I know that, the more that I affirm that, the truer that is, the more aware I am of their continued presence, their continued love, their continued involvement in my life. It's really phenomenal, isn't it? My mother died many, many, many years ago, and at the time I was working at the health department here, and I was so impressed. This was way before I came into Science of Mind. The director that was there, Randall Turpin at the time, wrote me a little card, and I still have the card. And this is from even a background in a very mainstream teaching. What he wrote was, those who love us, they're never far from us. You can't chase them away. Just because you don't see them doesn't mean they aren't there. And it's true. Yeah, it's phenomenal. But we do that. We tend to take the things we see, assess them really quickly, make snap judgments, and go on from there. And so today, what we're doing when we're doing that is we're closing out a lot of love. We're turning the volume down, the setting down on our love meters and allowing them to not register the whole thing. And we have an amazing teaching here in Science of Mind. I love this stuff. And I think part of the reason that I love it is that it really pushes me on a very deep personal level to recognize that God is in the things, the divine presence and love is in the things that I don't like, okay? And that, that's a pushing issue for me, isn't it? It's a pushing issue for every one of us, I think, if we're walking around in a human body. It's an experience. We have a wonderful spiritual practice that we call spiritual mind treatment, technical name for effective prayer. And essentially the first step of that, when we practice that, tells us, I know that God is all there is. There isn't some other power, some other entity out there doing bad, out to get me, out to conspire against me. No, okay? That belief system comes from millennia ago, and we don't even need it anymore. So that's, what happens is that when we don't need it, other teachings come in, a la Science of Mind. So we have a wonderful teaching and a wonderful tool that we can use anytime we're faced with something that looks challenging, is to look at it and say, somewhere in all this manure, baby, there's got to be a pony. There's got to be a God. There's got to be good that's coming out of this. It's pretty phenomenal. We like to use the analogy in this teaching of the seed. That's where the little sprouts come from, the seed. Those look like crocus, maybe, or daffodil to me, don't they? Yeah, I love that. The seed, the soil, okay? You have the medium there, the soil, and then you have the plant too. Okay? We're going to talk more about that coming up in a couple of weeks on Wednesday night in our class also. Pretty amazing stuff. Now, how many of you in here have gardened, have ever put a seed in soil and then waited? Probably everybody. We've all had that experience, haven't we? Right? So you got yourself somehow a container of dirt, mud, okay? And then you got yourself some kind of seed. And you probably picked the seed, or maybe somebody gave it to you. I don't know. Kids do this a lot in school, so sometimes they'll come home the Friday before Mother's Day or Father's Day. Well, they're not in school at Father's Day, but Mother's Day. And they'll have a little paper cup, and in it is some dirt. And if you water and love and add the right kind of sunlight, maybe a little food, after a little while you see something come up, don't you? Lots of us as moms or dads, we've received gifts like that, or given gifts like that even to people. At Christmas this past year for our board, I gave them all those, bulbs, okay, in soil. Yeah, so beautiful recognition of the service that those folks have provided for us. Now think about that for a minute. You put that seed in some dirt, and then you watered it. I used to be friends with a guy who was a landscaper. And he always used to say, now, when it's newly planted, newly transplanted, you must remember to water it well. Especially plants, if they're root-seeded, they have to be watered well. So you water it and you give it sun. As that thing pokes the surface of soil, though, guys, what's the first thing that moves? It's dirt. Okay? So when we begin to apply the principles of love in any way, sometimes what comes up for us in our lives is not very pretty. It's dirt, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. In the Unity teaching, they have an amazing principle, and they call it chemicalization. We don't teach this in Science of Mind, but it happens. In my world, at least, you might find that it happens in yours too. Chemicalization means that things are coming out in a better state of affairs than ever before. That's from Catherine Ponder, a Unity minister. And Emmett Fox, a divine science minister, also very close to Science of Mind, says, it seems as though everything begins to go wrong all at once. Have you ever had the, who hasn't, right? Got at it, and we see that. Remember the movie The Secret? The gal gets out of bed and hurts her hand turning off the alarm clock, and, the toothpaste goes all over her clothes, and the nylons rip, and the whole thing, and it's just, she's kind of all to hell before she's out the door, right? That's the time to stop and breathe, Or Emmett Fox goes on to tell us, this may be disconcerting, but it's really a good sign. Suppose your whole world seems to rock in its foundation. Hold on steadily and let it rock. Let it rock. Love the rocking, okay? Love the rocking. When the rocking is over, the picture will have reassembled itself into something much nearer to your heart's desire. And isn't that amazing? Have you ever had an experience where at every turn, in every part of your life, it just didn't look good? Yeah. It can be pretty devastating. It can be pretty hard to see God in those places. And yet, there is no place that God is not. And we know that, don't we? Yep. So, do you like dirt? Yeah. Do you welcome dirt? It's really hard to, isn't it? It's hard to say thank you. It's hard to say thank you, when, something that you've been kind of used to in your life, even if it was uncomfortable, decides to change. I used to be married to someone who he's a wonderful individual, and he had a wonderful point that he would make sometimes, and I think that this is a significant point. He would say, if you take your finger, I'm not going to do it all the way, but if you take your finger and you put it in your eye, how does it feel? Wrong, right? Yeah, that's doesn't poke your, I mean, you don't have to poke your eye, but you know, just think about that experience of sticking your finger in your eye. It doesn't feel good. If you leave your finger there, it begins after a while to be normal, right? If you leave your finger there for an even longer period of time, felt like it's always been in my eye, right? What happens when you take the finger away? Feels wrong, doesn't it? Yeah. Is it wrong? No, that's the way it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to walk around with your finger in your eye, are you? If you want to, come talk to me. But yeah, so we're going to take a test now, okay? And this is where you need to get your love meter. Okay, are you ready? All right. So just imagine yourself in this scenario. You're driving down the road. It's a beautiful sunny day, just like it is today. You're in your car. You're enjoying yourself. Maybe you're listening to something cool on your radio or whatever. That's nice. You're enjoying yourself. And you're eager to get where you're going. And then you come upon a car, and the car is in front of you, and they are driving 25 miles slower than you are. Okay? So you do that for a little while, and you can't pass. There's people coming in the other lane, or it's a no passing zone or whatever. And you notice behind you there's traffic. You know, cars are kind of building up back there, and they're getting impatient. And you're feeling that impatience because they're right on top of your bumper. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like that very much when somebody gets close to the back of me. I get a little concerned that, you know, if I have to stop fast, they're gonna hit the back of my car or something. And so you really begin to get kind of frustrated. Now, what happens once you get into that all the way with your love meter? It kind of goes down toward zero, doesn't it? You might even be thinking, this person needs to get off the road. I have business to attend to. I've got a life to lead. What are they doing? What the heck is going on up here? Come on now, get out of the road. You might even be, you know, some of those little friendly hand signals kind of things, you know. Or you might wait till you pass them and, you know, do that, whatever. But, okay, so then all of a sudden, intuitively, you get it that driver in the car in front of you is really in distress. They're really having a tough time. They are at the onset of what they know to be the warning signals of a very severe asthma attack. Oh no. And they're in front of you. And they're driving the car. And you get it that, you know, they've kind of split themselves in two there. They might be driving with one hand. They're over here fishing around, you know, in the console and in the pocketbook and in the glove box. They know that inhaler's there. They know it. They always have it with them, right? They know. They don't leave home without it, right? Like, what is it, MasterCard? They don't leave home, okay, without that inhaler. It's an important thing for them to carry that with them because of the state of their health right now. And so they're trying to drive and they're slowing down. They're trying to be careful, you know, and they can't breathe, okay? I don't have asthma, but, you know, I've seen a few people, you know, have some issues with it, and it is kind of a scary experience. They're driving, and they're looking for some place to get out of the road. They just haven't found it yet. What happens with your love meter now? Well, it kind of, you know, if you picture this as your love meter, it kind of begins to go up a little bit, doesn't it? You begin to be a little bit concerned for the welfare of that person in that vehicle up there, and for yourself, and you know, there are 82 people behind you now, okay? And they're all going crazy because they don't have the intuitive capacity that you do, or awareness. They don't know this driver is really in distress, you know? Sometimes have you ever wanted to kind of like almost sort of have an out-of-body experience where you went over and helped somebody real quickly? Yeah, so you might be, whatever your path is, sending them some angels or some light or some love, or going, God, help this person out, you know? Get them off the road safely, get them, you know, I'll pull in behind them, maybe they need 911, we'll do whatever we need to do, right? Okay, we'll take care of them. We have wonderful people in here that help people every day. I know, Katie's one of them. She's big on helping people out, so, yeah. So what happened to your love meter? It kind of came back up there, didn't it? Okay. And so here's another scenario. Would you flip this line? Any of you remember this picture? This picture made the headlines again this year. It'll be 40 years this week that this little girl, Kim Fook, ran from her home when her village was bombed with napalm. Now, if you encountered somebody and you didn't see this picture, okay, you were told someone was running down the street, screaming, crying, snotting, freaking out, using language that you might even find kind of, might put you off, ripping their clothes from their body. If you just heard that happened, you would say, well, you might want to ask why, but come on, tell this person to shape up a little bit. That's not really social behavior. We don't allow that. When I first saw that picture yesterday on the online news that I follow, I was like, what? Of course my immediate thing came up was, this is a child. What in God's name is going on? I didn't remember it. That picture is 40 years old. That little girl was a Vietnamese girl, okay? She lived. They said she wouldn't. She did live. We are remarkable in that capacity to do things, okay? Yeah. Go ahead and flip there you go. That's Kim Fock today. And the gentleman who is with her is Nick Oot. Nick was an AP reporter who scooped her up and poured water on her from his canteen and from the canteens of other American soldiers and took her to some kind of medical unit, and then went back later and said, she's going to die here. This unit can't save her. They don't have the technology they need. Please, let's get her to a real hospital. And he got her moved into an American facility. Okay? And he continued to follow her for a while to see what happened. And what happened is an amazing story. Yeah, I'll share that in a minute. But go back to your love meter for a moment. If I said to you, you didn't have that story behind it, there's someone running down the street here in Sylva, North Carolina, tearing their clothes off, screaming, snotting, freaking out, using, wild language, begging for help. Your love meter might not, it might kind of be doing a little vibrating, but it might not come all the way up here. Well, what happens when you see that first slide of her, and then you know the story? Her behavior's appropriate, isn't it? Again, we tend to categorize. We tend to say it's good or it's not. It's God or it's not, okay? The bottom line is, in the napalm that hit that village, God was present. And in the heart of this man who picked her up and saved her life, God was present. There is no place where God is not. And we have, by the principles of quantum science, only to name it and to claim it and to know it. And what happens? But we focus on it, and that divine essence, that energy, that wholeness will collapse into form right before our eyes. What an amazing teaching. What an amazing principle. And what an amazing thing. How brilliant is that? This gal is phenomenal, and you can read about her. I'll tell you just a little bit of her story. She decided not too many years ago that she wanted to go to medical school. And I guess she got enrolled, and it didn't work out. It just didn't work. And she really wanted that as her path. And this guy, all of a sudden, God sends us angels every moment disguised as, crickets or butterflies or the person sitting next to you. Isn't that amazing? Somehow, he shows back up in her life, and he's retired, and, apparently he's done pretty well, and he said, you know what? You want to go to medical school? That will be your world. That will be your experience. Yeah. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing. Yeah. I love it. Just love it. But that picture, that first picture of her, was the dirt. Okay? It was the thing that we so easily turn away from. Okay? And judge and say, this is not good. And I'm not condoning that, any little child. I'm not condoning that anyone ever suffer, okay? I'm really not condoning anything that has anything to do with war. And I recognize that, if we want to be able to have the freedom we talked about our freedom a couple of weeks ago on Memorial Day, that in so many countries they don't have that religious freedom. In so many countries, this teaching, this science of mind teaching, the reason that we call ourselves centers for spiritual living is because the very word church is, what's the word I'm looking for, is held, and we couldn't use it. Nobody could use it. There's a government sponsored church and belief system. So in those countries they have to be careful. Mexico is one of them. It's not that far away. It's not third world countries. It's right down the road. That the word church can't be used by anybody because there's a mother church, if you will. Yeah, pretty wild, huh? So, where's your love meter now? Okay. Yeah. This lady, she's phenomenal. She started the Kim Fook Foundation, okay, to help orphans and children of war, okay. When she did that, or as she has done this, as she has moved through this process from June 8th, 1972 to June the 3rd, 2012, and on beyond in time, she has embodied things that are embodied when we pick these teachings up and use them, when we use the first step of our effective prayer, and we recognize that, okay, it looks like a barn full of pony poop, but I know somewhere in this picture there is God, there is wholeness, there is rightness, there is goodness. When we do that, guys, we use spiritual principles. They're so powerful. Okay, they will set your life on fire. We use principles like acceptance. Okay? And think about it. Anything, any trauma, any tragedy, any experience you have ever had that hurt or that caused you to recoil, the first thing you had to do to get through it was to accept it. Didn't you? Yeah. So we use spiritual principles like acceptance. We use spiritual principles like faith. Okay? And I'm going to tell you, this is sad, okay? I've been living this teaching for a number of years, and there's still so many times when I pick that tool of effective prayer up and I walk out on that plank and I wonder, will it work? Okay? When I'm not in a place of faith, and by the time I have come full circle through that spiritual process and that spiritual practice of spiritual mind treatment, of living what this program teaches, I literally have chemicalized myself. I have changed. Who I am has changed. And when I change, that stuff out there, it's got to change. It can't survive. Okay? If this is clear, that has to be. Yeah. There might be a little buffer of time, but it has to be. Yeah. And that's a good thing, because think about some things that you really don't want to show up in your life, like, the elephant in the living room kind of thing on the, what is it, The Secret? Yeah. You don't want that elephant in your living room. They're hard to get rid of. Nobody wants to buy one these days, and they eat a lot, and they leave large, markings. So, yeah. We get it, that we live spiritual principles. And another one she lived, is so amazing, is forgiveness. You cannot look at something in your life that is causing you friction or causing you a sense of contraction and recognize the God in it and not begin to forgive whatever happened. Can you? Yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful. So yeah, we have an amazing teaching. It's a wonderful teaching. I love it. Come join us on Wednesday because we're having a blast in that class. You will come out the other end of it different, I promise. Yeah. So as we close today, I have a little gift for you. This is a love meter gift, okay? So you can take this gift with you. You can put it in your pocket or put it in your purse. I think the lady looking for the inhaler, the person looking for the inhaler in the purse, I think the estimated number of times you lose something in your purse, ladies, every day is like 12, okay? And I have a little purse, but it seems to happen at least that many times. This is just a little gift, Okay? And Donna isn't with us today, I noticed, but Donna loaned me a video, and then when I watched it, I called her up. I said, Donna, I love this. You know, can I keep it a little longer? Because I want to show it at the center, but we have our movies already booked through August. She said, oh, you can just have it. Put it in the lending library there, so you can't check it out yet. It's still at my house. I'm going to watch it again. But it's a DVD called The Cure Is You. Okay? It's wonderful. It's got amazing, amazing teachers, amazing spiritual folks in it. This is a little affirmation that I really thought Ernest Holmes wrote this because it sounds so much like him. He didn't. I guess he didn't. They didn't give him credit if he did write it. I'm not familiar with it. So let's read this as we close together. Let's read this. Today my love goes out to all people and to everything. There is no fear in this love, for perfect love casts out all fear. There is no doubt in this love, for faith penetrates all love and reveals a unity at the center of everything. The love flowing through me harmonizes everything in my experience, brings joy and gladness to everything, and brings a sense of security and well-being to everyone. I look for the good and what is right, and love always surrounds me. Love is God. So as you go today, go in love, take this out, read it often, and enjoy. Know your love. All right. Thank you.